Hello and welcome into the Coach on the Couch podcast with your hosts, Martin Fleming and Stephen Alexander Simmons. This fortnightly podcast covers various topics relating to subjects from career and work, health, nutrition and well-being to parenting, relationships, and much more. Each episode will deal with a particular area of these. So, if you are interested in learning and hearing some different thoughts, ideas, and even get some tips or helpful suggestions on these areas of life, or perhaps you are into self-development, then we hope you will stay with us and hopefully enjoy a fun, insightful, and what we hope will be an interesting discussion for you.
Welcome into another episode of Coach on the Couch. In this episode, episode 7, we discuss and explore the topic of perception and reality and how that is developed or created. So I hope you find this interesting, and without further ado, let's go straight into the episode. So, welcome back to this episode, and I hope you've still got enough coffee left, Steve.
I have. Do you know what? I'm very proud of my little coffee sample today. And what I do like about it is, people say, don't they, that you should try. What's that phrase now? When you try something different, what's the definition of insanity? Is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Mm-hmm. And I've been trying to give up coffee actually for a long time, but I've managed to do it. But obviously I've been seduced by this new flavour coffee, and I'm not a fan of trying like new things. And I mean, I like what I like and I know what I know, and so the thoughts of trying anything outside of those parameters, I'm not touching with a barge pole. But I think it's the fact that, when someone's done something nice for you, you kind of feel like morally obliged to kind of to do it or to appreciate it. So I'm like, I'll give this a go, because this isn't something I would normally try. I mean, what is it, coffee and mint or something? I don't know what it is. It? Oh. Well, if I take the lid off, I don't know if we can do this. Can we do like what's it? Is it I can't say sniffathon. Is it
smell test?
No, if you smell that, it just smells of coffee. But I think it's I think it's just coffee and mint or something. I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's good. So I think there's something in there about trying new things. I think, and just giving it a go. So I think that's my little takeaway for the day. So I don't think I need to do the rest of the podcast now.
You want to take it away?
I do want to take it away, but I think they might want the cut back. To be fair, so I won't.
So you don't want turmeric tea?
Normally, again, I would say no, but now I feel like I'm on this path of trying new things. So, yes, why not? Why not?
Why not? So, I was thinking that maybe we could just have a chat around perception and reality. So, things like what I suppose at its foundation or fundamental level, what would you say is kind of how is perception? What is it? Where or how is it developed? How does it develop?
I think the first thing I want to say is I don't think there's any kind of like basic element to it, because obviously the more you kind of get into it, you realise there's nothing basic about it. But I think if you used to strip it back, I think at its very, very basic level, if you like, I think it's to do with like a point of view or the way you see something at its very, very, very basic level. And so for me, I think that's, if somebody was to talk about perception, you know, how do you perceive that? It would be that's the kind of thought process that I'd go through. Oh, it's something how I think about it, or and stuff like that. But then, like I said, for me, there's nothing basic about this, because then I'd go into intuition and stuff like that. And so, yeah, but I think at a very, very basic level, I think it's just how you might view something. Maybe.
It's
But I'm going to backtrack it a minute.
no, but so how? But I'm just trying to think of the right question. I suppose is so if it's how you view something, but I mean, what's going to make you view it in that way? And like, I mean, they always say, you know, kind of, or like you said about your view or how you perceive something, but does that mean everyone's going to perceive it in the same way? And if they're not, then why not?
I don't know how to kind of answer this, but I think I don't think everyone does perceive something exactly the same way. I mean, I think, I mean, this conversation could go down a rabbit hole very, very, very quickly, because, you know, when you talk about conspiracy theories and stuff like that, you know, there's a whole, you know, I'm thinking about Mandela effect, right?
Okay.
Now, with the Mandela effect, obviously, there's a whole kind of group of people who obviously perceive that something has happened. So if it's on an individual basis, you might be able to go, okay, yes, maybe, you know, you can question that. But how is it that a whole collective of people, now, we're not talking one or two people. We're talking, what, thousands, millions, have all got this same perception that something has happened.
But do they have the whole same perception? If you took individual accounts, then more times than not, they usually say they all differ in some way.
I think they're all going to differ in some way, but when you kind of ask them about that, there's still this kind of like this one line. So, for example, I'll use the Mandela effect in the sense that, you know, it's called the Mandela effect because it was based on Nelson Mandela and this thought that Nelson Mandela had died in prison, which is where I think the whole kind of concept came from. And so there was a whole load of, you know, this collective of people who felt, you know, that this happened, you know, Nelson Mandela died in prison. But of course, we talk about reality. This reality is that actually he didn't. So in what reality did he? Or didn't he?
But what it's kind of a similar question, which I was going to come on to anyway, which is like, what's reality though? What is real? Because if we perceive something, so you said about your own thoughts on what it is. I believe that perception comes from all your influences from birth, right? So you have things that you've been brought up to believe, values that you've taken on, experiences that you've gained, and those and your current situations and the lifestyle you have or whatever. All those influencing factors provide your lens of reality, your perception of what things are. So and someone who might be in a more privileged background would more likely have a different perception of life and things that are going on than someone that's not so well off, or, you know, hasn't got lots of money or doesn't own a house or whatever, you know, whatever the kind of different situations are, and your environment. So I think your perception comes from a lot of influencing factors, because that shapes the way you think about your surroundings in your life and various things like that. And that shapes our reality as an individual. So reality is not a group thing. Reality, when you take the human perception into account, reality is an individual thing.
But is it though? Because is it not a societal thing?
No, because we all have our own ways of thinking and viewing on like our perception on that. So and that takes into account your view and your opinions on things. So if you believe something, and someone else believes in a different, a different side of something or whatever. I mean, you take kind of, without getting political, but obviously the easiest one would just be that you've got two political parties with two political viewpoints or sides of things, or they're meant to have. But anyway, we won't go there. And that's gonna obviously, the people who have those different views look upon things in a different way. So and reality, true reality, if you want to go down to true reality, it's all about fact. So you have to strip back and take away all those influencing factors and say, well, what actually happened? And it's about what actually has happened, or what it is, and that's it, the whole basic fact. Because anything other than that is not reality, really, because it's all individual perception. So that would be my kind of thoughts on it.
But it'd be that person.
I'm open to being.
I really would like to challenge that right now, but I'm not, because I think he's going to be a challenge for maybe later on. But what I really want to do is I want to pick up on something that you said earlier about this idea of wealth. And the reason I want to pick up on that is because we live in a society, well, our society, just to say, in the Western world, around wealth being, very materialistic, and what is the definition of wealth and success, for example. And the reason I mention that is because, I think I've mentioned this in another podcast, like there was a friend of mine and he didn't realise that he was poor, in inverted brackets, until somebody told him that he was poor.
Mm-hmm.
But then in comparison to somebody else, he is wealthy, and so there seems to be this concept. We talk about reality, we talk about perception, that wealth is about having lots of money, it's about having the big house, it's about having the lifestyle. And so one of the things that I've been doing, and I've been looking really hard into this, is almost going back to basics and saying, well, what is wealth, or what does wealth mean for me? And so for me, it's about actually, we talk about the basics. Do I have a roof over my head? Yes. Do I have food in my cupboards? If no, am I able to go and get that? Do I have people who care about me and love me? Yes. And so as long as I've got, those basic things in place, for me, I feel very, very wealthy, because I know that there are people who don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
And yet somebody else might look at my lifestyle and what I have and go, well, you can't be wealthy because, you've got some second-hand car, or, you're renting, you don't have your own house, blah, blah, blah. And so you know what I mean? So the list goes on.
Mm-hmm.
And so you kind of, that brings into question the whole, well, what is the perception of wealth, and what is the perception of that reality of, well, what is success and what is wealth, and how that's perceived.
But that's all different again, because as I say, because each person's going to perceive that differently depending on what their influences have been and what their beliefs have been. So your perception of it, and even we get on to another issue here. So you can change your perception, but again, to change your perception, you have to change your influences and your beliefs about something. So so you can perceive your lifestyle, your the way you live or whatever, and the whole kind of view around wealth or whatever, in one way, but that doesn't mean that everyone else perceives it that way, because it depends on their in, what they've been influenced in terms of thinking, and what they interpret as wealth or whatever. So again, it's all outward influences, and it's all it's all to do with part of what kind of makes us who we are or whatever, and it's all our individual lens of reality on that. So I mean, even as simple as things like you might have an accident, and when they take an account of an accident, when the emergency services come, like, they won't get exactly the same account because people perceive it slightly differently.
And and again, my question for you on a personal level, and I hope you don't mind me saying this, is, I'm going to say this quite I can't think of the word, but anyway, is perception again something that we view with our eyes, for example? And so, I'm looking, just to be very crude here, I'm looking at the remote controls, right? And I'm going, oh, okay, my perception is that it's a remote control because that's what it is. However, it's actually made up of energy, for example. But I can see it's a remote control, so therefore it's a remote control. But then for somebody who hasn't got visual sight, so does that mean that visually that perception is different?
Okay, let's make this simple, right?
Let's make it simple.
So you said it visually, right? So you said you're looking at the remote controls. Now, I mean, obviously, this is in my own environment, so I know they're there. But if I didn't know they were there, to me, perceptionally, they wouldn't exist, because I don't know they're there. But they are there because they're over there, and if I put my hand on them, in my reality, they become substant, and they become part of my reality because I know they're there. So from that point of view, the other one is that, yes, it's a remote control. If we had time travel and you brought someone back from the 16 or 1800s, they wouldn't know what that is, because they don't have that ability. So the perception, don't know what the perception would be of it. But
and similarly, in psychology, we were taught that obviously just because we give something a name and a label doesn't mean to say that's what it is in that person's reality. We've discussed this before. So, for example, a box. We go, oh, this is a box, but to somebody else, it might be a house. It might be, I don't know. It could be a castle. It could be something else.
Carry you.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Yeah.
And so again, the whole question of perception and reality kind of comes into play there, psychologically, because again, is it something that we label?
I still come back to the fact that it's from our own understanding and what we've experienced. So if all we've experienced is living out of a box, then that is going to be your home and your house, and you would protect it no matter what. Whether it's under a railway bridge or wherever, in a doorway somewhere or whatever, that's going to be your place. So I think again, it's still for me, it still comes back to what your understanding, your experiences are, and your influences at the time, and your surroundings. Similarly, again, we've got things like could talk about due to my sight impairment, you could talk about disability services. So to some people, they might think, oh yeah, they get lots of stuff, and there's they do all, this organisation does lots and lots of stuff for them or whatever. But then for someone with a disability themselves and trying to get those services or those provisions, it may not be so easy. And so their perception of it might be something completely different, and they might say, no, it's rubbish, or it's it's not as good as you think or whatever. So so yeah, so your realities become, well, your reality is what your perception becomes, or it is, if that makes sense. So
I'm kind of confused in a sense, because there's that thing of, well, is it rigid, is it concrete, or is it fluid? Because I'm kind of getting the idea
It's
that
fluid.
actually it is very fluid.
your perception can be, because your perception can change due to what. So you take, once you come out of a situation or a certain you know way of life or whatever, and your surroundings become different, then your perceptions can change as well. So if you're on the other side of something, it's like what else can I give an example of? So so it's like if you're a user of a service or something, or a certain product, but then you go and work for that company and that side of it, your views or perception on that product or that particular company or whatever it might be. I mean, I was actually, in my head, I was thinking of kind of where, with more so specifically to do with kind of if you were volunteering, for example, but then you go and work as a volunteer coordinator or something like that, and you see both sides of the whole kind of arena, so to speak. So your perception can be very, very different, and your understanding so it can change. If you're only on one side of something, your understanding's only of that and what you're experiencing, and your perception will be of that. Where if you're then on the other side of that, your whole perception can change because you've got both sides of that coin. So I suppose it's a bit like the whole it's hard to do when you've only got one side of something. So it's like when people say, well, don't judge something unless you put yourself in their shoes, but it's very hard unless you have been in it to have that perception to really understand that. Can be quite a difficult thing.
And as there was saying, isn't there, that I think that's something that you taught me actually, is this sense of you only know what you know. Mm-hmm. So you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, and that then that's what builds your perception, your reality around you. So
see now you see I'm thinking, is reality and perception, is it a conscious or is it subconscious? Because now my mind's going into lucid dreaming, it's going into quantum physics, right, and it's exploring. That's what it's doing.
On a everyday level, it would be a subconscious thing, because we don't walk around going, "Oh, is that really like that?" Or is it, when you start thinking about it, yes. And again, once you start experiencing different things, your perception will change, but it's done more on a subconscious level than a conscious one. We're not going to sit there and go, well, like, is that really that, or is it not that, or, so yeah, I would say it's more subconscious, but it's subconscious because it's built on what we already know. So it's like it becomes a subconscious thing that the brain just does.
Because when you look at it again psychologically, the brain likes what is familiar to it, and so it will go back to its default mode of, okay, I understand this and I accept this because this is my experience of it. And when something new is put in its way, there's that resistance of, oh, I'm not too sure about this, or is this safe? So therefore, I'm going to go into reaction mode of, okay, maybe it's best not to experience this.
Mm-hmm.
So then we go into that flight or fight mode, don't we? And we either go, yes, let's do it, because we've had good experiences of trying new things, different things. Or maybe if you've had bad experiences of trying new things, then we're going to be less tempted to do that.
Yeah, or if you don't really understand the background or something, or you don't, you don't understand the reasons for something, that can also, so you can have resistance. Like again, so a decision could be made. You might be in you might be affected by a decision that's made, I don't know, say for example in the workplace or whatever, or whether it's government or whatever, anything where you may not have that control because you're not at that, you know, level or whatever, and your understanding and your kind of your opinions and your beliefs about something, you might say, well, why have they done that? Or I don't understand why they do that. They've done that, and there'd be that resistance, and it'd be kind of, you know, that's kind of either ridiculous or that's whatever because they don't have that, you know, a person doesn't have that understanding. So then your perception is just that, you know, oh, that's a waste of time, or, you know, whatever it might be. It's the perception of it is kind of very resistance based, and yeah.
I suppose from a coaching perspective, one of the questions I have is, you know, I'm thinking if somebody's listening to this and you're thinking, you know, are there ways that I can change my perception? Are there ways that I can change my reality? And if their first reaction is to be resistant, you know, how do we combat that resistance?
Wow. I think as individually, I think if you're resistant, I think, you know, again, it's looking at things inwardly, really. Why are you being resistant? What is it that you're resisting, and why? Is it going to serve you to resist it? You know, and is there any point in resisting something? If it's not in your control, then is it going to serve any purpose to resist it? The only thing, if you can find something from it, one little bit that you have control of, then that's the bit that you can do something with. That in itself is not going to change your perception of something or whatever, but it's by looking at resistance, then, and questioning that, then you can, if you ask yourself, well, is it going to serve me to think this way and to be this way? Then, you know, if it's not, then you can start looking at a way, you know, other ways, and trying to find ways to change, you know, find the reason and the why to change, and how to, you know, some other reasons to change that perception of whatever it is. I don't know if that makes sense. I kind of feel I've waffled a bit there, but
and the other question I have is that how do you find either equal ground? I think, you know, my hope would be equal ground if, again, someone's reality, someone's perception is so way different to yours. You know, how can you, you know, how can you come together and still, you know, work through that? Or
the first step to that, I think, would be to try and see if there's any overlapping common elements, and work from there. As once you've got something in common, it's a foundation to build on. By having common elements as well, it might also help you to and also listening to that other person, and that's a whole new topic in itself, like proper active listening, and hearing, you know, what that person thinks and why they think that way or whatever. And now if both people can do that, then it's going to be easier to meet in the middle as well, because you can then try and understand each person's reality, their viewpoint, their perception, whatever, and why it is that they have that perception on something. Once you've got that, doesn't necessarily mean you have to change yours or agree with it, but at least you'll have some common ground and you can work on things, and that opens up a whole realm of, like, you know, being able to negotiate lots of other topics that is not for today, but
So what I heard by that is that it's about communication.
yeah, I think communication is always key in a lot of things, to be honest.
And I like what you said about the commonality. I really like that, because I think if you're coming from opposite ends of the spectrum, almost the default mode is to go into kind of attack or defense mode, isn't it? And it's not, we talked earlier about conscious and subconscious. And so to almost come at it from a commonality point of view is something to do consciously. You'd have to consciously do that, because it's not always automatic. So I think, the fact that you said, yes, try and find that commonality, I think that's absolutely brilliant, because then you can either say, okay, well, we can agree to disagree, or we can go, wow, I didn't realise that actually there's so many commonalities. Oh, okay, so maybe we can find some middle ground here. And like you said, it doesn't mean to say that you're going to shift your perspective and your reality, but what it does mean is that you are open then to someone else's different lens, different viewpoint, and so you can appreciate something, even if you don't necessarily agree with it, you can still appreciate it.
Yeah, and you can also you can understand why someone might have that perception of a situation or an event or certain way of life or whatever, because by listening to them and trying to find that common ground and understanding why it is, then at least you can see why it is that they are like that, obviously then just goes from there, then whatever.
Because then that links to something that you said earlier about it being about someone's experiences and how they were brought up and stuff like that. And again, it's only so for example, if I didn't know you, then I wouldn't know why you thought the way you did, the way you acted like you did, and it's only by knowing somebody that we can find those things out. And so then we can have more empathy, we can understand more. But unless you have that form of communication, then you don't know, and that's when prejudgments and preperceptions are made because of that not knowing. And it's only through that communication, listening, that actually we do have a better understanding.
Yeah. And then bring it right back to something that you originally said at the beginning as well, was that by reaching out, by connecting, and by all those kind of trying to see and understand that stuff, and the communication brings you back to that joint reality, because we're not alone. So but by understanding each other's perceptions and ways of being or whatever, gives us that societal reality, that global reality. But it if you can be more understanding and kind of have that communication, which obviously I know doesn't always go on, because we don't all get on with everyone, but it should make living with others a lot easier, and actually understanding them a lot easier. Obviously we have wars and we have things where there's other aspects that it's not just about perception, but even a lot of things around, even if you look at big events like that, wars and stuff, that's about someone's perception of something.
And so it kind of almost comes back to almost the silly example I gave at the very beginning of being open to trying something new.
Yeah, I suppose I mean, I suppose you have to be open, because if you're not open to doing that, I mean, obviously if the other person's open as well, then it makes it even better. But I mean, just if you were just dealing with one person as coaches, if we had one person who came to us and just went, oh, I'm struggling with this person, so and so, whatever, you can only work with that one person's perceptions. You can only work with their reality. You can and you can only help them to be open to other people. So, and that can still help that person, however, which can actually still make a situation easier. But if you've got both people willing to do that, then it's what's the phrase? Happy days, I suppose.
Exactly. And And to use a very silly example, so for example, you like your flavoured teas, or you're a big fan of your flavoured teas. Now me, I'm so rigid when it comes to tea. I like my PG tips. I like the non-flavoured. So if you say to me, "Oh, Steve, you got to try this because this flavoured tea is amazing," I'm like, no, because this is my perception of tea. It should be like this. And if I'm not willing to even try that flavoured tea, then I'm going to be missing out because actually I don't know what it's going to taste like. And also there's that sense of I'm rejecting you on what you're offering because actually I'm not I'm not respecting that. And so it's only if I go, okay, do you know what? You're saying it's amazing. I don't believe you. That is my stance. The least I could try and do is either prove or disprove that. Now, if I try one of your flavoured teas and I think, okay, that is nasty, therefore it confirms my belief, rightly or wrongly, flavoured teas are nonsense. I mean, of course, you'd go, well, actually, you need to try this flavour and this flavour and this flavour. And then you might get an idea of flavoured teas because they're all different, you know.
Yeah.
But unless I'm willing to go, well, do you know what, okay, I'll give it a try, then actually I would never shift my perception of reality that flavoured teas are just wrong.
Yeah, I on one level, I think you could refuse as long as your clarity of communication and you explained why it was, whether you many years ago had something that wasn't very nice or whatever. So okay, even if I was then to turn around and say, well, yeah, but that was years ago. Like, try this. I mean, if you really felt it wasn't for you, then as long as you express that to someone and you try and explain it, because that's the other thing was when you said about that and you said, oh, you could just reject it or whatever. It's like, without knowing and everyone having different perceptions of things, without good communication, and maybe we should do a separate episode on communication. But without good communication as well and clarity about what it is, or why it is or whatever, that you could offend someone, or you could upset them, you could and because they have a different perception of again about surroundings or whatever and people and their life or what and their beliefs and all that sort of thing. You don't know how that person's going to react if you're not clear about it. So it's fine to reject something, but to have at least explain why it is and to own, like what they call, especially in personal development circles, own it. So to say, well, I know this is only my view and my thoughts, but I'm not really going to change my views on this, and this is why. At least then someone has that choice to then to accept that, and to kind of try and understand that. If you don't give them that choice, and you don't give them that understanding, then obviously all hell can break loose, sort of thing. So,
and it's about that word respect, isn't it? Because I think it's okay, like you said, to be so grounded in what you think, and we say beliefs, for example. You can be so grounded in your beliefs that, so actually I believe this so strongly, there's no way I'm going to even try to comprehend like what you're doing, even though that's your lifestyle, whatever. However, I can still say, well, do you know what, it's not for me, it's not my thing, but I still respect you as a person, and I still respect that actually that is your thing. So you can still have that level of respect, and I think that is important, other than just dismissing. And I think that's comes back to what you said about it's how you communicate that, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think it is about having that mutual respect and saying, well, okay, well, we don't have to necessarily try these things. We can say, well, actually no, but you can still respect and.
Yeah. So, but I mean, some of obviously I know that was kind of simplistic examples but yeah, I mean that's and that all builds to your ability to be able to change that perception or whatever as well. Then if you're able to do all of that, so because again, through experience, if you've experienced someone else and they've explained something to you, then your perception on that can be very different. So again, another little example is that someone that I know and just recently kind of disclosed that during lockdown that they tried to take their own life. But prior to that, so prior to them doing that, their view on it was more that like suicide was a selfish thing. It was kind of lots of kind of, I suppose, negative kind of thoughts around it, and kind of not really no empathy around it, or any of that kind of stuff. But because then they attempted that during lockdown, that their whole way of thinking about it now, and understanding of it, and why it happens and why people feel that way, and whatever, has changed dramatically. And again, so that it's again experience, having experiences, whether good or bad, can will shift your whole perception of certain things in your life. So whether it's tea or suicide, is yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like that example. Actually, I think that's absolutely superb. And I think, like you said, that it's only when we go through this stuff ourselves, personally, that I think our perception can change, and our reality changes, because it is a new and different experience for us. I think
suggestions.
No, I think like you said, this. I mean, you could probably do like a part 2 and a part 3 and a part 4, because my head is thinking about quantum physics now. It's thinking about lucid dreaming now. It's thinking about
alternate
realities, and so I think it is probably a good time to stop this particular episode, because I think you could just go off and off and off, couldn't you? So maybe for another time.
So, well, thanks for everyone for listening, and yes, bye for now. Thank you again for joining us today for our episode on perception and reality. And in this episode, we obviously explored what is perception, how is it created, how it shapes our outlook and our reality, and also ways and possibilities of changing our perceptions, as well as trying to see things from other people's perceptions or realities, or understanding that. So I hope you found it really interesting, and we look forward to being with you again soon. So until then, thank you again for listening, and bye for now.
Thank you for listening to the fortnightly Coach on the Couch podcast with your hosts, Martin Fleming and Stephen Alexander Simmons. You can find this podcast on the following platforms: Spotify, Anchor, and Google Podcasts, and more platforms to follow. You can leave comments and feedback directly on the Anchor platform, or you can contact us directly by emailing us at coachonthecouch22@gmail.com. Thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to being with you soon.